Federal public servants will have to report to the office up to 3 days a week as of March 31st. The federal government says it has, quote, rediscovered the value of shared in-person experiences and a need for consistency on how hybrid work is applied. This, despite some staunch opposition by unions.
We're doing a common approach, encouraging, of course, and making sure that all across government we're following this new adapted approach that after experimenting for the last 6 months and encouraging organizations to do it on their own, now we're bringing it all across government that it will be 2 to 3 days or 40 to 60% of the time.
Chris Aylward is the national president of the Public Service Alliance of Canada. Mr. Aylward, I'd like to start with your reaction to this news. Will your members happily go back to work 2 to 3 days a week, or go back to the office, excuse me?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, David. No, I mean, our members are absolutely furious about this. And, you know, one of the reasons is the timing of this, basically. But, you know, federal public sector workers have proven and demonstrated that basically they can continue to deliver for Canadians, whether they're working remotely or in an office environment. So I'm not too sure what the minister, you know, is saying that, you know, about work. Certainly the workload can be done. When you look back at the beginning of the pandemic with the emergency relief benefit and emergency wage, the salary benefit and other benefits that went out the door for Canadians when they needed it the most, it was done in 3 weeks. And all of that work was done by employees working remotely. So when you look at that, and then you take into consideration, of course, the rising inflation, cutting into workers' wages, the ongoing and consistent Phoenix pay system issues that our members continue to face every payday, working without a collective agreement for more than a year. We've been here for Canada, basically, and this is a poorly planned and a knee-jerk reaction from the government that doesn't have the best interest of workers at heart and is completely, really at odds with the direction the government has been moving regarding remote work.
Okay, but help me.
Another issue.
Sorry, help me understand why you're furious, though. And I mean, you've got March 31st. It's 3 months. It's 3 months to prepare for this, and everybody had to go to the office until we heard of COVID-19 in March of 2020. So why so angry about what would be seen as a return to somewhat normal work?
Because we have this at the bargaining table. We've been at the bargaining table since June of 2021, and this is an issue we have at the bargaining table. When you go into bargaining, all your terms and conditions of employment are frozen. We have this issue, as I said, at the bargaining table, and for the government now to unilaterally basically change the terms and conditions of our members and imposing a mandatory return to the office is an egregious violation of workers' collective bargaining rights, basically. We want the government to come to the table so that we can negotiate for remote work, and have it enshrined in our collective agreements, basically, so that workers have a say in their working conditions and an avenue to advocate for themselves if they feel the policy is being applied to them unfairly. So that's why they're so upset. And again, to announce this, you know, the last week that the House of Commons is sitting, they don't sit again until the end of January, a week before the holidays. This is causing much frustration and anxiety amongst our membership. And if this government, and especially Minister Fortier, thinks that this is going to become yesterday's news, it's not going to become yesterday's news for PSAC members.
Okay, but just help me understand something. You're negotiating this at the bargaining table now. You're negotiating, I presume, for the right to hybrid work, because your existing terms of employment would be that you have to go to work. Like me, I'm supposed to come to work if my bosses tell me, because we did hybrid work at CBC for a long time too, but your existing terms of employment is you have to go to work if management tells you have to go to work, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And many of our members through the pandemic went to work every single day. Our border service officers, our food inspectors, our members who you know, work at federal institutions, they went to work every single day during the pandemic. We represent 165,000 federal public sector workers at PSAC, and 80% of our members have been working, though, from home throughout the pandemic. And as I said, they've clearly demonstrated and proven that remote work is effective. So now, you know, the minister, Fortier, whose riding is right here in the National Capital Region, Ottawa-Vanier, she thinks it's okay to put now tens of thousands of federal public sector workers on public transportation. And that's starting, David, by the way, it doesn't start March 31st. It starts January 16th.
Right, but why is it a problem? Like to have people get back on public transportation and start going back to work?
Because we're still in the middle of COVID. Hospitals across the country, including here in the Ottawa area, are bursting at the seams because of respiratory diseases. And Minister Fortier that's okay. Don't worry about it. Just get back on public transportation and go to the office. And why? The minister said back in the spring when the federal budget was tabled, there was $3 billion identified as savings in that budget. When Minister Fortier was asked, where are those savings coming from? What was her answer? It's because of remote work. We're going to shrink our footprint. Well, what is it, Minister? Is what you told us back in the spring at the budget, or is it now, or is the budget going to change? So there's a lot of reasons why our members are frustrated over this.
But it's not a 5-day-a-week thing, right? It's 2 to 3 days, 40 to 60%, because some people have compressed work weeks and different types of work weeks that apply there. I mean, does that not, how is that an unreasonable position? I understand you're negotiating this, and I understand you have concerns about the viral situation right now, but there's going to be a flu season every year that we have to deal with, and so you don't make permanent work conditions based on seasonal viruses. So, like, why is a 40 to 60%?
But David, no, I'm sorry, but you cannot simplify it like that. We're not in a normal flu season environment. We got respiratory diseases, especially in children's hospitals. So now our members are concerned, about having to take their children, put them in childcare. First of all, trying to scramble to make arrangements for childcare and transportation. And again, a week before the holidays, it's nothing but total disrespect for federal public sector workers.
How do you think private sector workers are going to view the complaints here, though? Because, when you look at, and the CBC was part of this, we had sort of ironclad job protection during the pandemic. I didn't have to worry about losing my job. Your members didn't have to worry about losing your jobs. Private sector workers did. A lot of them lost their jobs. A lot of them are going back to work full-time in the office now. And it's not phased in the way the federal government is looking at doing it. So how do you think people who don't work for the federal government are going to look at this? I mean, do you think they're going to have any sympathy for your argument here?
Well, I mean, certainly, even in the private industry, remote work is a reality. I mean, you may be working in Halifax and reporting to somebody in Ottawa, the same as it is within the federal government. But again, the minister's claim that she just said around fairness, and they're going to now to put this out across the government. This is only for the core public administration. This does not apply to the Canada Food Inspection Agency. It doesn't apply to Parks Canada. It doesn't apply to the Canada Revenue Agency. They're being strongly, recommended that they follow the same policy. So how is it fair and consistent now across the government, as the minister claims it to be?
But agencies have an independence.
And how is this policy going to be implemented fairly and consistently across the public service as well? That's another major concern. That's why we're trying to get it enshrined in our collective agreements.
Right. So government agencies, though, would have some independence from Treasury Board to set their own policies, right? I mean, that is the way it's structured. But just as a final question, I know you're dealing with this at the bargaining table. Is this a strike issue? Is this a fundamental issue where you think the PSAC could strike over the issue of remote work? Last week, when the rumors came out around this announcement, we did a quick survey with our members. 90% of our members who are currently working from home said they wanted to continue that same process. Mm-hmm. And 83% of them said that they would be willing to take job action to ensure that this gets enshrined in our collective agreements. Okay. Chris Aylward, thank you so much for your time. Keep us updated on any progress on this.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.